Picture for a second stepping into the driver's seat of a Formula One car that is already going 200 miles an hour. You didn't build the engine, you didn't tune the suspension, you didn't even put the tires on. All you have to do is keep your hands on the steering wheel, don't crash the thing, and you are virtually guaranteed to cross the finish line and be handed a championship trophy. That kind of absolute bulletproof job security used to actually exist at the highest levels of professional football. But today, contrast that historical luxury with stepping onto a sweltering, brutal practice field in mid-August. You know, deep in your gut, that one missed block, one slow read, or one incredibly hungry, undrafted 21-year-old rookie could literally end your entire career overnight. Poof, gone. Job security in the National Football League is this utterly fascinating and, quite frankly, terrifying concept. It's an industry fundamentally built on constant, relentless turnover. Yet, if we look back at history, we find these incredibly rare pockets where security was absolute. We are diving deep into that today on NFL Nexus. If you love cinematic, unfiltered looks into the brutal realities of professional football, do me a favor, subscribe, like this explainer, comment your opinion down below, and support what we do by becoming a channel member. Let's get right into this incredible contrast between the ultimate historical safety net and the absolute cutthroat reality of today's roster building.
So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're starting with a shocking coaching transition. Then we'll look at what it means to inherit a championship roster. From there, we jump to the present day, where absolutely nobody is safe. And finally, we'll break down 3 specific veterans currently sitting right on the bubble.
Section 1. A shocking coaching transition. In the NFL, winning usually buys you absolute power, right? It buys you time, it buys you incredible leverage, and it buys you the benefit of the doubt with the front office. But in Dallas, during the early 1990s, winning back-to-back Super Bowls literally bought you a one-way ticket out of town. Let's go back to 1993. Jimmy Johnson had just achieved the absolute pinnacle of the sport. The guy had meticulously, obsessively built the Dallas Cowboys from a 1-in-15 laughingstock in 1989 into a complete and total juggernaut. We're talking back-to-back Lombardi trophies. But, as is heavily documented, there was this intense, deeply personal conflict brewing with owner and general manager Jerry Jones. It was a massive clash of 2 gigantic egos, and it finally boiled over at the annual NFL meetings. Johnson departs. And Jerry Jones notoriously claims that there were 500 coaches out there who could have won the Super Bowl with the roster he had assembled. The sports world was entirely floored. The Los Angeles Times even ran the headline, "Jones turns Dallas into Switzerland." Because, literally one single day after Johnson's dramatic exit, Jerry Jones hires his former freshman football coach from the University of Arkansas, Barry Switzer. Now, to be fair, Switzer wasn't a nobody. The man was a legend in his own right. He had won 3 national championships at Oklahoma. But he had been completely out of coaching for 5 years. 5 years. And stepping into Jimmy Johnson's shoes, tasked with leading a rabid fan base and a team that expecting nothing less than a Super Bowl victory, it was an unimaginable amount of pressure. And yet, by 1995, in just his 2nd season in the professional ranks, Switzer leads the Cowboys to a victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers in Super Bowl 30. He claims the franchise's 3rd title in 4 years.
So, the crucial million-dollar question is this. How on earth did Switzer adapt so quickly to a league he hadn't coached in, taking over a hyper-competitive locker room that was entirely, fiercely loyal to his predecessor? Well, the answer lies in the sheer, overwhelming, almost unfair amount of talent he walked into. Just consider the number 414. In Switzer's very first season, 1994, the Dallas Cowboys scored 414 points. That was the 2nd most in the entire National Football League. And they weren't just an offensive powerhouse. They allowed just 248 points, which was the 3rd fewest in the league. They finished the regular season 12-4, cruised to the NFC Championship game, and only fall short in a brutal, muddy, legendary shootout to the San Francisco 49ers. I need to emphasize this. This was emphatically not a rebuild. Switzer didn't have to go out and draft a franchise quarterback. He didn't have to lock himself in a room for weeks to scheme up a new defensive philosophy. And he certainly didn't have to establish a winning culture. That culture was already bleeding out of the walls. He walked into a facility that was a perfectly oiled, high-octane machine. His only real job? Just keep the train on the tracks.
Let's look at Section 2. Inheriting a championship roster.
Look, inheriting a championship-caliber locker room is one thing. But inheriting the brilliant tactical minds that actually built it? That is something else entirely. Switzer was handed an unprecedented level of security. Literally immediately after being hired, Switzer made what was undeniably the smartest, most self-aware move of his entire professional career. He changed absolutely nothing about the coaching staff. Nothing. Offensive coordinator Ernie Zumpez, an absolute mastermind of the legendary Air Coryell system, stayed right there. Defensive coordinator Butch Davis kept his job, running the exact same stifling systems they ran under Jimmy Johnson. Switzer also retained an incredibly deep bench of positional coaches who would later become prominent NFL head coaches themselves, guys like Dave Campo and Mike Zimmer. Switzer himself knew exactly how lucky he was. He publicly stated, "It's the greatest coaching staff in the NFL. I competed against some of them. I just asked them to give me a chance. Just let me garner their respect." He didn't have to build a playbook from scratch. The strategic foundation of a historic dynasty was handed to him on a silver platter, completely insulating him from the typical growing pains that tear apart almost every other new head coach.
And then, my friends, there was the talent actually stepping onto the grass. This wasn't just a football roster. This was practically a waiting room for the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton. You have Troy Aikman orchestrating the offense with absolutely lethal surgical precision. You have Emmitt Smith relentlessly, violently grinding out yards behind arguably the most dominant offensive line of the era. Michael Irvin dictating the entire swagger and culture of the team while moving the chains on third down. Larry Allen just imposing sheer, terrifying physical will on massive defensive tackles. Nate Newton, Charles Haley out there completely terrorizing opposing quarterbacks. Darren Woodson patrolling the secondary like a missile. The core that powered Jimmy Johnson's championship teams was entirely 100% intact. Switzer did not have to construct a Super Bowl team. He merely had to steer a battleship that had its weapons already locked onto the target. He was insulated by absolute greatness at every single level of the organization. This provided a level of job security, a guaranteed baseline of success that is practically mythological by today's salary cap standards. It was this rare, perfect alignment of timing, elite talent, and organizational structure that we are honestly never going to see again.
In fact, this totally unique dynamic birthed one of the most famous, biting, and ruthless critiques in sports broadcasting history. The legendary Dallas broadcaster Dale Hansen later revisited Switzer's tenure and delivered this incredible, completely unfiltered assessment. He said, and I quote, "The assistant coaches saved him. I'll go to my grave arguing this. Yes, he won a Super Bowl, but a friend of mine once said, my mom could have won that Super Bowl with those assistant coaches. Ouch." Hansen pointed out that while Switzer was known as a brilliant, fiery, and entirely unorthodox head coach back during his Oklahoma days, things eventually went completely off the rails in Dallas. Because by 1997, as that immense, foundational talent he inherited began to age out, retire, or leave for massive paydays in free agency, the winning stopped. The culture eroded, and Switzer resigned. The unbelievable security he enjoyed early on was ultimately a mirage. It was entirely propped up by the heavy, foundational lifting done by the previous regime.
Which brings us to a massive, looming question that truly defines the sport we love watching today. Does past success guarantee future security? In the 1990s, before the salary cap fully aggressively clamped down on dynasty building, if you were lucky enough to be grandfathered into a winning system with a legendary roster, you had a multi-year shield. You were protected. But in the modern National Football League, that shield has been entirely, irreparably shattered. The league today is a ruthless, unforgiving, cold-blooded meritocracy. It is a strict zero-sum game where what you did yesterday, what you earned last year, or how much guaranteed money your contract says you make means absolutely nothing if someone younger, cheaper, and faster can execute your job better today.
Which brings us to Section 3. Present day, nobody is safe.
We are leaving the grand dynasty era in the rearview mirror and dropping right into the volatile, high-stakes pressure cooker of modern preseason roster battles. Set the scene with me for a second. It is the 2026 NFL preseason, Week 2. The Dallas Cowboys are facing the Arizona Cardinals in a late-night desert showdown, kicking off at 10 p.m. Eastern. Now, for casual fans on the West Coast, it's a fun, rare primetime treat. For fans on the East Coast, it's a brutal test of endurance just to keep your eyes open through the fourth quarter. But for the men actually lacing up their cleats and stepping onto that field, it is an absolute, desperate fight for survival. With the established, high-paid starters expected to watch safely from the sidelines in their baseball caps, laughing and joking, the stadium lights will shine strictly on the desperate. Up in the booth, the front office and the coaching staff are agonizing over the initial 53-man roster. Every single snap is being graded. Every slightly missed assignment is recorded on high-definition tape. The margins for error are completely, terrifyingly microscopic, and real, lifelong careers are genuinely on the line as the clock ticks closer and closer to cut-down day.
Section 4. 3 veterans on the bubble. These are guys who have put in the literal blood, sweat, and tears. They've learned the painfully complex systems, and in some cases, they have truly physically anchored this team in the past. But right now, today, they are staring straight down the barrel of unemployment. Take this intense battle on the offensive line. Terrence Steele is the senior member of the Dallas offensive front. The man is a phenomenal story, an undrafted free agent who grinded his absolute heart out to get a starting role, earned a highly lucrative extension, and became a massive foundational part of the rushing attack. But he suffered a devastating ACL tear in 2022, and unfortunately, his play has been incredibly uneven since his return. Here's the harsh truth. Seniority does not pay the bills in the NFL if the game tape looks bad. Steele actually agreed to take a significant pay cut this offseason just for the chance to remain with the team, but his performance in camp simply hasn't shown the necessary consistency to lock down his spot. Meanwhile, young, hungry challengers like Nate Thomas and Drew Shelton are breathing right down his neck. The front office only reworked Steele's contract because they didn't feel they had a viable replacement entirely ready to go yet. But if Thomas or Shelton take a massive step forward in their development this weekend against the Cardinals, showcasing reliable pass protection and solid run blocking, the organizational math changes in an instant.
And the crazy thing is, the pressure isn't just coming from the depth chart behind him, it's coming directly, publicly from the top. Head coach Brian Schottenheimer recently and very pointedly called out Steele's lack of consistency to the press. Listen, when your head coach is putting your mechanical flaws on a microphone for the media to broadcast to the world, it is a glaring, sirens blaring red flag. In the modern NFL, a reworked contract with reduced guaranteed money is not a safety net. It is a countdown clock ticking loudly in your ear. If the coaching staff decides a newcomer has developed just enough to hold the line and protect the quarterback, a respected, battle-tested veteran like Steele can be shown the door without a second thought. The transition from being a celebrated franchise cornerstone to a guy waiting by the phone as a free agent, it happens in the blink of an eye.
Now let's pivot to the second critical battle we're tracking, this one taking place at inside linebacker. Dee Winters was added in a draft day trade with the San Francisco 49ers and was immediately penciled in as the starter. The coaching staff loved his film, they loved his speed, and to his absolute credit, Winters hasn't really done anything wrong. He has had a remarkably solid, highly professional training camp. He's out there making the right reads, communicating well, and executing the defense. But he is currently staring down the ultimate nightmare scenario for any established player. Waiting in the wings is a rookie who is absolutely undeniably lighting the practice field on fire. Jayshon Barham is explosive, he is incredibly hungry, and after missing the first preseason game, he is set to make his highly anticipated debut on Saturday night. Winters represents a known quantity, a stability, but Barham represents a vastly higher athletic ceiling, and in the NFL gladiator pit, breathtaking athletic potential very often wins out over steady competence.
Just to give you an idea of the cinematic, almost suffocating tension inside that linebacker room right now, listen to Barham's mindset coming into training camp. He stated, plainly, aggressively, and directly to the media, "I want to take someone's job." Wow. That right there is the unvarnished, cutthroat ecosystem of an NFL training camp summarized in 7 words. There are only 53 chairs available at this table, and the music is about to stop. If Barham looks as violent and dominant under the stadium lights against live competition as he has against his own teammates on the practice field, Dee Winters, despite having a perfectly solid mistake-free camp, is the most likely victim of this rookie's ruthless ambition. Think about the psychology of that. One man is simply trying to hold on to his spot, feed his family, and execute his assignments. The other is actively hunting him down, looking to forcibly take his livelihood.
Finally, we look at a situation where a player's massive past contributions mean absolutely, unequivocally nothing to a brand new coaching regime. Let's break down this incredibly crowded, highly stressed safety room. Malik Hooker is the most experienced and longest tenured player in the Dallas secondary. After dealing with some truly severe injury issues early in his career when he was a first-round pick with the Colts, Hooker came to Dallas and brought much-needed stability, vision, and veteran leadership to a position that used to be a complete revolving door for this franchise. He has been a reliable safety valve for years, but just look at the sheer wave of young challengers currently flooding this roster. You have Julius Wood, an undrafted player who was an absolute heat-seeking missile on special teams in the preseason Week 1 win over the Seahawks, just flying down the field and making impact tackles. You have Caleb Downs, who brings massive expectations and undeniable elite talent as the 11th overall pick. And then, crucially, you have to look at the coaching connections. Jalen Thompson has direct, established ties to new secondary coach Ryan Smith, who came over from the Cardinals. PJ Locke has direct ties to defensive coordinator Christian Parker.
And that web of connections is exactly why Hooker is in extreme danger this week. Defensive coordinator Christian Parker deeply values scheme versatility, and he has inherited a room completely full of young players he either already deeply trusts from past stops or who have immense organizational draft capital attached to their names. Because Malik Hooker lacks a direct, historical working relationship with this newly installed defensive coaching staff, his years of stabilizing the Dallas backend simply don't buy him any grace period. The NFL is heavily a relationship business, right up until it isn't. If an undrafted standout like Julius Wood secures a spot on the roster through sheer, undeniable hustle and high-level special teams utility, it could instantly jeopardize Hooker's roster spot. Why?
simply because Wood is younger, significantly cheaper, and contributes heavily to the crucial third phase of the game. That's the cold calculus of roster management.
So we've seen how a phenomenally stacked deck back in 1995 could turn a brand new head coach into a Super Bowl champion in his second season, completely shielding him from the immediate, brutal consequences of the NFL grind. But today, as we look at Terrence Steele desperately fighting to prove his reconstructed knee is fully healthy, D. Winters trying to fend off an explosive job-hunting rookie, and Malik Hooker hoping his veteran savvy outweighs his lack of ties to a new defensive staff heading into this late-night desert clash, we have to ask ourselves a brutal question. In the modern National Football League, is job security just a fragile illusion, an illusion that completely fades the exact moment a hungrier, cheaper player steps onto the field? It is a ruthless, ever-changing landscape, and every single snap this weekend could alter these players' career trajectories forever. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you want more deep dives into the real stories shaping the league, make sure you subscribe to NFL Nexus, drop a like, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and consider becoming a member to support the channel. I will see you in the next one.